Good morning, everyone. My name is Julie. I just want to do a quick introduction while the slideshow is coming up. So I've been a clinician for almost 20 years now, 19 years, and I am a mother of triplets, and one of them has special needs. He has Down syndrome and autism and is nonverbal. So in that respect, I kind of get it. And then we also have another singleton that we had, an oopsie baby that's 9. Um, so the QR code for the entire presentation is going to be available at the end. So don't feel like you have to write everything down. You can just take a screenshot of it at the end and have the whole presentation. Okay, so let me just figure this out. There we go. Oops. There we go. Okay. So we're going to talk about the signs of caregiver burnout. There's a lot of research that I've included, but I know you're kind of maybe burnt out on a lot of information. So what I really wanted to do was focus on the actual tools in order to learn how to incorporate them into your day-to-day care. Sorry, there's a little delay. There it goes. Okay. So we're going to talk about caregiver burnout and then talk about self-care, what it is, what it isn't, how we're going to incorporate it into our busy lives, and then tools that you can use in your toolbox leaving today. Whoops. Sorry, guys. I'm like figuring this. Okay. So before we get started, I want to do a little energizing exercise. So if you're able to, if you can get on your feet, then I'm going to come over here. Hey. All right, so we're going to do a couple of movements because movement is so important to our mental health and to our bodies. So get on your feet, and if you feel silly, you don't have to follow along or close your eyes. Nobody's looking at you, I promise. Okay, so just follow along with me. The first thing we're going to do is called rebounding. So it's just like this, it's just like bouncing. So get soft knees and just bounce. Just let your kind of body hang loose. And this aids in a lot of lymphatic drainage. It aids in your in cellular growth. So just keep bouncing like that. Okay, and it stimulates the metabolism, it circulates the oxygen to your tissues, it does a lot of great things. And this is really good to do within the first 30 minutes of waking up. Okay, and the second thing that after you're done bouncing, we're gonna do what's called 8 arms, and you're gonna go like this. So as you're kind of bouncing, just swinging your arms back and forth. Just keep it real loose, right? And this opens up your diaphragm, helps you take bigger breaths. Okay, so keep swinging like that. And it reprograms your faulty breathing patterns too. So this is really, really good because a lot of us do what's called shallow breathing, which I'll get into in a second. And then the last thing is if you can kind of cup your hands like this, and then this is called the lymphatic massage. Just start on this wrist and just come all the way down, like into your armpits, all the way down your sides, all the across the abdomen. You go on this side, and just really, it's like cupping. Okay, and then you can just go with both hands all over your body. I know it feels silly, but as you're waking up your body, all the way down both legs, up your back. Okay, we have 2 huge lymphatic system drainage points in the armpits here, so it's really important to get that moving. Okay, and now kind of close your eyes and feel your body. You might feel some tingling in your fingertips. Okay, and your body is now awake. You guys feel a little bit of circulation, a little warm, right? All right. Yeah, now let's get into it. Okay, so if you're sitting at one of the front tables, and if you're not, there are some handouts up here and some stickers and things that we'll get into. If you're not sitting at one of the front tables, if you want to come up and get this worksheet, it's called 3 circles. And it's just 3 empty little bubbles that are on this piece of paper. So go ahead and grab one of those. Does everybody have something to write with? A pen or something? Okay, sure. So as you're coming back, I know I call them 3 circles, but as I was making this visual, the clouds looked really cute and fluffy to me, so I use those instead. So in each cloud, I want you to write label 1, self, then label the second one, your child, or the person that you're giving care to. And in the third circle, you can write partner. And if you're not with a significant other, you can write something else that's taking up a lot of your time right now. So it could be your career, it could be extended family, it could be any other big commitments that you might have in your life. So self, child, and partner. And I'm going to set a timer for 2 minutes. And what I want you to do is look at those three circles with the labels on them and just begin to fill in each circle with a list of things that you do for that person that's labeled for. So when it says self, what are the things that you do for yourself? When it says child, what are you doing for your child? And then it says partner, what are you doing for your partner? So go ahead and take a couple of minutes and just jot things down as they come to your mind. Okay, and as you're kind of writing things down, you might notice that maybe one circle has a lot more things written in it than the other circle. Kind of prioritize. So write a little number one next to the one that you feel like you're giving a lot of attention to, or there's a lot of things in that circle. And then label a number two for the second one, and then so on and so forth. So you have them ranked. Okay, and then we're going to come back to it in the end. So you can continue to write in there if you want, but go ahead and put it aside for now. Okay, so for caregiver burnout, again, there's a lot of research and verbiage, so I don't want to spend a ton of time here. I want to spend the time on the tangible tools. So I'll just go over a couple of them real quick. So caregiver burnout is the state of physical, emotional, and mental exhaustion that you experience while you're caring for somebody else. And some of the causes, I know there are a lot, but I want to talk about the conflicting demands. That's probably one of the largest things. Okay, so conflicting demands means you have needs, your partner has needs, your child has needs, the job is trying to get to you, right? There's a lot of things where you're spread real thin and you're having to put your energy into all of these different buckets, which basically at the end of the day kind of means that you can't really pour into all of them evenly, right? So one of the areas in your life are suffering, and it's probably the self-care part, right? Because we usually tend to put ourselves last after we've done everything we need to do for everyone else. And as we're going through this, if you feel like, oh, I really resonate with that, jot yourself down a little note because we'll come back to all of this. Okay, so some signs and symptoms of caregiver burnout. One of the biggest things is guilt. Raise your hand if you feel guilt. If you feel guilty, I'm not doing enough, I could be doing more, right? Look around at all the people. Right? This is a huge part of just parenting in and of itself, and then special needs parenting, right? There's a lot of needs that everybody has around us. And so we feel bad when we can't meet all of those needs. And then I want to talk about self-neglect, which obviously is going to build into the self-care piece of it. But like I said before, we tend to put the caregiver last. We put ourselves last. So we're the ones that are burnt out. We're the ones that are not really understanding what our direction and our own passions are because we're spending all of our energy into another person to take care of them. Okay. We go. Okay, so how to manage. The one I want to focus on is the third bullet point there. Focus on what's in your control. How many times are we spend, like, do we spend and our energy in worrying about things that are outside of our control? Right? Why can't my child be better? Why can't my situation be better? How come I'm not doing X, Y, and Z? And all of that stuff is out of our control. Do you guys know what the one thing that you can control is? Anyone? Anyone? Yourself. Right? You can definitely control yourself. You can control your own thoughts, your own emotional reactions, your emotional condition, the way you behave. All of those things are very much within your control. And when everything else feels very out of control, we want to kind of come into ourselves and focus on the things that are within our control. Okay, and then on top of that is drawing boundaries. Okay, so being able to control ourselves, meaning we're going to focus on the things we can control. So setting boundaries is one of the big ones. So a boundary, just to clarify a little bit, is again saying communicating what you're willing to do or not do. So it's just dictating your own behaviors. The second we say, hey, don't do that, or why are you doing this, or don't, then we're talking about control. That's dictating someone else's behaviors. So we don't want to do that. We just want to be able to say, oh, I don't have energy for that right now. I call it unsubscribing, right? So if someone's just like, oh, like trying to rope you into their stuff, then you just unsubscribe from that. Okay, I'm kind of moving fast through this so I can get to the fun stuff. Okay, so taking care of your health is one of the really, really important things. If you don't take away anything else from today, take away this, is that sleep health is the number one, the most important thing that you can do for your body is getting a good night's sleep. So for me, I'm a after 1 a.m., 2 a.m. sleeper. It's horrible for me. I'm still working on it to get that together. But if you don't get a lot of sleep, try to sleep in the hours of 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. That's the circadian rhythm of when your body actually needs rest. So if you, again, can only get 3 to 4 hours of sleep, go to sleep at 10 and wake up at 2 a.m. and then do what you need to do. But the longer we kick back sleep and the later we go to sleep, it's really, really bad for us. So sleep is first, then is health and nutrition, the things that go into your body. Those are the top two things. And then moving your body, movement is the last one. So making sure that you're getting enough sleep. Okay, so now that we've kind of talked about all of these stressful things, I'm going to show you one little tool that I have. So go ahead and get comfortable in your chairs. Put your feet flat on the ground. And then before we do this, I'm going to teach everyone how to take a proper deep breath. So if you can put one hand on your chest and put your other hand on your belly and just breathe as you normally would and observe which hand is rising and falling. And for the vast majority of us, it's going to be the hand that's on our chest. Right? So that's what we call shallow breathing, which means that our oxygen is not going all the way circulating into our system. So it's a 4-part breath. So you fill up your nasal cavities, fill up your mouth, fill up your throat, and then fill up your lungs. Okay, so when you're taking a deep breath, sorry, walk over here. Your belly hand should be the one that's rising and falling. So everybody take a deep breath through your nose and exhale out through your mouth. So try one more time, deep breath in. Out of your mouth. How many of you can notice the difference of which hand is rising and falling? Some of you? Yeah. So when you're taking a really deep cleansing breath and you want to try to circulate all of that oxygen through your body, make sure your belly is the one that's rising and falling. And deep breathing is probably one of the basic things that we can do for ourselves. Okay, so this is called tone therapy. It is a 3-minute sound bath of sorts. So if you can close your eyes, if you want to, just get comfortable in your seat, and we're just going to do a short little meditation. Taking those deep breaths. All right, go ahead and start wiggling your fingers and toes around and bring yourself back into the space. And all the tools and things I'm showing you today are linked into the presentation, and this is just what they look like. They charge, you can take them anywhere. So this is a sound bath that you can have anywhere, and it's 3 minutes long. I killed it a little bit early so that we can get into the other things. But that's a really, really easy way to just sit and kind of have a moment. Okay, so now we're going to get into the actual self-care and kind of talking about the different areas of where self-care is important. So as we're going through this, you have your 3 circles worksheet. Look at the self bubble. There might be nothing in there. And then once you kind of go through these lists with me, and if you find any ideas that resonate with you, go ahead and just jot them down into that self circle. So there are various ways of self-care, and there's different areas that we need to pay attention to the self-care. And there's six different areas that we're going to go over. And the first one is the mental part of self-care. This just means developing a really healthy and balanced mindset. So one of the best ways and the easiest ways to do this is to practice mindfulness. And mindfulness just simply means staying present in the moment. So research shows that over 50% of the time that we're awake, we're not focused here, we're focused on the past or we're focused on the future. So we're never present or rarely present. So mindfulness just basically means, like right now, if you're being mindful, you're paying attention to what your body feels like in the chair, you're paying attention to what my voice sounds like, maybe the temperature in the room, right? What the visuals look like. So that's staying present in the moment. So do what you can to just stay present. And one of the easiest ways to do that is by staring at a flame of a candle. And if you don't have a candle readily available on YouTube, there's just a flickering candle that you can bring up, and you can just stare at the flame of the candle and just focus on the flame. And you do that for a couple minutes, it really helps to calm your entire nervous system down. Okay, and then for physical, I'm going to talk about walking a lot because walking does what's called bilateral stimulation, which means that we're activating the left side and the right side of our brains alternately. And what that does, what the bilateral stimulation does, is actually shrinks down your amygdala, which is the stress center of our brain. Right? So when we're feeling really stressed out and we're in that fight, flight, freeze, fawn state, that's our amygdala being triggered. And any type of bilateral stimulation will calm the amygdala down. So when you're starting to feel triggered and you feel flooded and you're feeling all the feels in your body, just go on a walk. It's a really, really, really easy way to take care of that. And also it's physically beneficial as well because you're moving. I'm going to talk about a lot about walking because it's one of the easiest things that we have access to at any given moment in time. So emotional self-care. So it's being able to understand yourself better and to develop a healthy emotional response. So one of the biggest things as caregivers is that we tend to look at other people and try to regulate their emotional condition as well, right? So if our child is unhappy, if our partner is unhappy, we're like, okay, what can I do? How can I help? What else could I do to fix this, to alleviate this? Right? And so we do a lot of emotional outpouring. I'm sure you've heard the phrases, put on your oxygen mask first, can't pour from an empty cup, all of those things, right? So I always say in order to be selfless, you have to be selfish. And selfish isn't a bad word, right? It's not a bad thing, but I think it's kind of turned into something like that in our culture, in our society, right? But you have to be selfish. You absolutely have to take care of yourself if you're going to be caring for someone else, or else the order just doesn't work. So for emotional, another easy tool is if you have your smartphone, you can go to your app store and there's an app called I Am. And all it does is gives you positive affirmations. It is a beautiful, beautiful tool. You can have it sync to your watch if you have one, right? And then like different affirmations will just pop up. And the ones that you like, you can keep. The ones that don't pertain to you, you can skip those. But that's a really good way to just keep yourself in the positive mindset. The other thing I want to talk about is that last bullet point, schedule a time to cry. Okay, I know this sounds really bizarre and weird, but when we're in a stressful situation again, we're soaking in the cortisol. I'm sure you guys have heard of cortisol, right? The stress hormone. There's only 2 ways for that to exit your body. One is through sweat and the other one is through tears. So if you're not crying or sweating it out, you're just storing cortisol. Like your organs are just soaking in that stress hormone. And if we don't let it exit out of our body, it actually stores in our gut. Okay, so it's really, really important. And then it affects gut health and all, it just goes on and on. Okay, so schedule a time to cry. If there's a song, if there's a certain part of a movie that you can bring up and just, conjure up those emotions and then just let them go. I compare, when I talk to my kids, I compare emotions like taking a poop. If you don't poop, it hurts, right? You get backed up, get constipated, right? So when emotions come up, you need to feel it, and then you need to take that dump, and then just let them go. They really get it when I talk about it like that. And then environmental. This is to increase a sense of belonging and to take care of our immediate surroundings. And sometimes it might be out of our control. Our house might be a mess, right? Because there's people in there, like we don't, there's a lot of caregivers maybe your kids are running around and throwing everything off the ground. That's what my son was doing this morning as I was getting ready. I can just hear all the things just crashing off of his bookshelf. And so we can't control everything, right? But what we can do is appeal to our five senses. So one of the things that are on these tables here are little lifesaver mints. Excuse me. And it's a really, really powerful way to be able to ground yourself. So when things feel like it's flurrying around and you're like, where do I focus my energy? Who do I have to get back to? What do I got to do today? Just got to take a second, you pop a mint in your mouth. It's a very strong sensation and it kind of brings you back into the moment. Okay, social, building healthy relationships with people who get you, which create a sense of belonging. How many of you have heard of Brene Brown? Pretty famous, yeah, speaker, right? So she talks about belonging versus fitting in and how those two things are opposite. Right? So when we want to fit into a group, we will change ourselves to be able to meld into what the general group wants, right? But when we have a sense of belonging, we're being completely accepted for who we are and how we present. So you need to kind of find a community that will accept you for who you are and how you're presenting instead of having to change in order to fit in. So social is super, super important. Human beings are social creatures, and we thrive with that connection. This doesn't mean you need to be an extrovert and every single day you got to talk to somebody or go out with somebody because that's exhausting. I'm an extrovert, and that even sounds exhausting to me. But it's important that we have groups of people, right? So maybe for partnerships, you have a group of people that you talk about that. Maybe you have a group of people that you share career stuff with. Maybe you have a group of people that you talk about parenting with. So it can't be one person. You can't just lean on one partner to fulfill all of those groups and those bubbles. So you kind of need everybody, and that's the importance of staying connected. Recreational, this is one of the biggest areas that adults don't do is play. We've forgotten how to play, and play is just leaving our day-to-day lives, right? And we're not having very much fun, right? Adulting is hard, right? Parenting is hard. And a lot of what we do on a day-to-day basis is really challenging. So being able to play, getting back in touch with your inner child, and engaging in something creative. So if you do something creative, you get a little dopamine burst in your brain, whether that's going to like the dollar store and getting a coloring book, right? Getting some crayons. You can do a puzzle. You can, if you're really crafty, learn how to knit, do a DIY project. So engaging in something creative really helps to feel better. And this is a really cool visual that the Gottman Institute put out. And if you're not familiar with the Gottmans, they're the leading relationship experts who can predict divorce with 95% accuracy because of the amount of research they've done on couples and marriages and relationships. So if you don't know them, they're a really good resource to look up. Okay, now let's talk about specific tools. Okay, so I'm gonna leave all the things that are underlined are links, so I'm gonna leave that there. The one thing that I do want to talk about is the shaking it out. So I'm gonna have you stand up one more time. So shaking your body can really help to regulate your nervous system and help you feel calm. So you've seen, if you don't own a dog or have never seen a dog, but if you've seen a dog that's get wet, what do after they get wet? They shake it all out, right? So that's exactly what I want you guys to do right now. I know it feels super silly, but just shake your body. Your head, you're just loosen everything up. Just shake it all out. Okay, this could be done at a red light. This could be done right before you have to walk into work, right before a transition, or maybe it's been a long day and you're walking into your house and you're like, oh, what's gonna hit me right now? Right? And you just kind of shake it out, regulate everything. And then just stand there for a second. And you can feel all the tingles. And you can feel maybe your heart beat picking up a bit. And that really helps to calm everything down when you're feeling overstimulated. And that's super accessible at any given moment in time. Okay, and then some more resources. And okay, now we're gonna circle back to the circles. See what I did there? I'm gonna go back for a second. Okay. So this is the last thing we'll do. So if you go back to your circles, you might see that maybe you've added a couple more things under the self circle, right? Maybe you've taken some of those tools or interventions for self-care and jotted them down. So what I want you to take away from this is that, and keep the circles there, right? You can keep working on them and keep growing them, is that your bubble absolutely has to be the priority. Okay. So kind of the pyramid as we understand it, we put our child first, we put our partner second, and then we put ourselves last. We gotta, okay, because if we're good and our partners are good, guess what? The kids are gonna be fine. Okay. That's it for me. I'm going to, there's references from all the research and everything. And then here is, so the QR code that is on the left side, the one that's closest to my picture, is the full presentation if you wanted all of the active links and everything. And then the QR code on the right side is to my group practice if you ever have a question or need to get in contact with me or anything else. And that's it.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Lee. That was wonderful. All right. So yesterday we did full panels and then we did Q&A. Today we're doing it a little bit different. So after each speaker, we'll have a quick Q&A session. Instead of writing the questions down, I'm just going to bring the mic around. So if you have a question for Dr. Lee, we've got about 6 or 7 minutes. Can you put the QR codes, that last slide back up? For parents that didn't get it, sorry. Do we have any questions? Yeah, they're putting it back up.
Working on it right now. Yeah, of course.
Any other questions?
That was so thorough. Nobody has questions.
You were amazing. Hold on, got one.
So I am a mom to a 13-year-old little boy who has a lot of needs. And I also run the nonprofit here. And so I'm very, very busy and I spend a lot of time away from Ben and I have a lot of guilt about that. But my biggest question for you today is like, people always ask, like, how are you? Who are you as a person? And I have such a hard time defining me other than I'm a mom and, or the executive director for the foundation. That's like my two main roles, Do you have any tips for like how to wrap my head around who I am? And I just don't remember anymore.
Yeah, I would. That's a great question. Thank you, Leah. The thing that I recommend the most is go back to a time where you did know, where you did have direction. Maybe you had your own goals and passions. Maybe that's before children, maybe that's before partnerships or your current career. But going back to a time where you can tap into, oh, I had real energy for that. What was that interest? And just trying to rediscover parts of you that probably have just been forgotten about because of the day-to-day duties and all the other things that require your attention. Right. And so remembering who we were before all the things happened is going to be really important. And that's going to help fill that first bubble of the self-care part. Right. And so if you like, maybe you had a hobby in college or in high school or something, maybe you played a sport. So going back to things like that, you don't have to be an athlete. You don't have to win any competitions. It's not about that. It's about going back to and tapping into something that you were passionate about before and rebuilding your identity.
Got another one?
Yeah, thank you so much. You gave a lot of recommendations on, I mean, so many of us as caregivers and professionals are pretty skewed and failing on a lot of these departments. Like how do you triage which ones are like add the most value quickly, like low hanging fruit versus one that take time to build as we kind of think about ways to improve? And the second question is you mentioned kind of finding groups that are like you. I've always kind of thought a little bit of the opposite of kind of like what I want to aspire to be and finding groups that look like that, because I think there's a lot of data that suggests that people end up being kind of the middle of the group of people that they hang around with. Would love your thoughts on both. Thank you.
Okay, sorry. Go back to the first question. I gotta do it one at a time.
Sure. So if you're failing at a lot of the departments here, how would you kind of like low hanging fruit versus kind of like longer reaching?
Yeah. Okay.
goals?
So let me start there and then I'll get to your second question. So the low hanging fruit are the little tiny tools that I showed you guys today, things that can be done in under 5 minutes, right? Because everybody has 5 minutes. And if you feel like you don't, we got to really reconsider and prioritize how your days are going. And the best times to do that are in moments of transition. Right? So right when you're waking up, right before you go to bed, right before you send your kid off to school, right before you go to work, right before meal times or in between meal times. So it's very imperative to build it into your routine. That's going to be the lowest hanging fruit, right? Just like we wake up, we brush our teeth, we wash our face, get dressed, and leave the house. Within that routine, build in a minute, 30 seconds. I'm going to stare at this flame of this candle flame, or 1 minute. I'm going to take some deep breaths, right? The tone therapy, 3 minutes. You could do that in the car, anywhere. So just instead of thinking like, oh, self-care, that's such a big thing, and now I got to research this, and like, no, we don't have to do all that. It doesn't have to cost you a dime, right? Because YouTube is free and it has amazing resources. So you can even put in 5-minute mindfulness meditation and just have it play to you, and then you start your day, or maybe that's how you end your day. So just taking little bits, we call them snacks, mental health little therapy snacks, right? And just snacking throughout the day instead of trying to get in a big gourmet meal. Yeah.
Thank you.
And then
Any other? Oh, sorry.
You had a second question.
The other question was that you mentioned kind of finding people that are more like you.
Mhm.
What are your thoughts on finding people and kind of what you want to aspire to be and hanging around with them, and maybe like confrontational in that you're forcing yourself to change? But just your thoughts on that would be appreciated.
Yeah, I mean, that has to just do with personal growth and what your own needs are, right? And so it's if you're going towards like you said, somebody that you aspire to be, then spending time with that group of people is going to kind of meet that goal, right? And then staying with the people that you feel belonging to right now. It's not a decision of, well, I have to stay here, I got to go here. It's you can be in multiple places at once, right? And it'll address different needs that you have.
Any other questions?
Thank you so much. It's not really a question though, but some of the strategies that you mentioned were are really helpful. These are the things which I do. One of the things I noted was detox from media, but I think as part of regular things, taking care, work and things like that, I find like quickly, if I want to take a break, that comment that you made between things, like, hey, 5 minute, get onto something, look through, scroll through some things. I know, get out of it. Or maybe a quick 3 minute chess game, which I really like to do it. Even though I win, I lose, I don't care, but it's more like done. It's okay, that feels like a de-stressor for me, and like, okay, and brings me back, and then, okay, being more attentive to the next task that I need to get onto. So this couple comments that you made, plus the things that we are showing was really helpful though. Thank you so much.
I just want to speak to that really quickly because I do what you do. When I want to take mental breaks, I just get on social media and just mindlessly scroll. And that's actually not a break for us at all. What it's doing is just constantly stimulating our brains, right? With 15 seconds of information watching those reels. And so it's actually overstimulating your brain. So it's doing the opposite. And I have the same issues, especially at night, right? In bed, just and then 2 hours go by and I should have been sleeping. So in those moments, if you can maybe like scroll like a minute less, right? And then incorporate something that's more present and mindful.